All right, so that's President Ramaphosa there, boarding the plane to go to Addis Ababa to join his peers at the African Union Summit, which is taking place over the next few days. And as you know, just before that, we were speaking to our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, who's there. And let's go back to her now and see if she can give us an update on what's happening on the ground there. But the president leaving South Africa now, and again, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, talking about implementation as the key thing for him when he gets to Addis Ababa and takes up the chairship of the AU. The trade on the continent being key to economic growth. Silencing guns, another one of his big issues, and also one of the issues that he'll be championing this year is gender-based violence and empowering women. So that's the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, leaving South Africa for Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. In fact, let's go there now. Sophie Mokoena is there, our foreign editor. Sophie, the president is on his way, and as you were saying before we went to the airport, he has a lot of work to do this year.
Well, indeed, as he is preparing to get into not the Air Force One this time around, but Inkwazi, the Defense Force plane, the president is using to travel. I think he is going to sit in that plane, think about how he is going to ensure that all his counterparts on the continent are supporting him in terms of what he has just outlined. And I think to really unpack the challenges facing South Africa and the expectations from the continent and around the world as South Africa takes over the leadership of this continental body. With me here, I have Lizelle Low Van Dron, who is a researcher at the Institute for Security Studies in South Africa, to talk to us about the challenges, but also what South Africa needs to do to ensure that everybody is on board. Lizelle, thank you for your time. The president, as we speak, he is at Waterkloof. He's about to leave, coming here, arriving later today here, but as he is preparing to take over this important responsibility, there are challenges back home as well. Here, the challenges and perhaps the expectations. Can you take us through that? I see you've put together a good document that speaks to the South African policy and leading through consensus.
Thank you, Sophie. Yes, we titled that specifically Leading Through Consensus because we know 55 member states, various regions, various issues and challenges. You know, South Africa is going to, if we want to drive certain issues forward, we are going to have to bring the continent with us. Firstly, the Continental Free Trade Area, which there is a perception that that is something that is going to be largely beneficial for South Africa and other big industrialized nations. So for us to be able to make progress, and there are many sticking points still until it really, you know, it's supposed to enter into force on the 1st of July 2020. We are going to have to show commitment when it comes to other issues. So it is, and that's why we, in our policy brief there, we also looked at the expectations in Addis Ababa, and we must manage them. I think it's a very good thing that President Cyril Ramaphosa last week outlined just a few countries that we are going to focus on. Libya, South Sudan, Minister Pandor also spoke about Eastern DRC and Mozambique, because if we start, you know, there are so many challenges when it comes to the theme for 2020, silencing the guns. We can't solve them all in 1 year, and there are some of them protracted conflicts since 2013. As you know, South Sudan, Libya is really something that since 2011 the country has imploded.
The president talking about the role of women and him saying that the gender violence, you know, something that has to be high on the agenda of the summit.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that is something that hasn't been raised before, and I think it's very important for South Africa. It's something we also put on the agenda at the UN last year when South Africa was serving its first year as non-permanent member. We are again serving on the UN Security Council for 2020, which creates opportunities in terms of synergy of those issues that we, women, peace and security, was is something that we put on the agenda in 2019, and we will be driving that forward. So it's an opportunity, but for our diplomats and our staff at DIRCO, it's a challenge because we're going to be spread quite thin on the ground, We're going to have to deal with the UN and the AU in one year.
Well, when South Africa chaired this important body some years ago under Thabo Mbeki, we did well in some areas. Do you think this time around we'll be able to really improve on what we have done already as a country in terms of contributing towards the development of Africa, the renaissance, but also looking at accountability, the APRM, where we have been involved, and also the NEPAD, the blueprint for the development of the continent?
Exactly. I mean, that momentum that was created in the early 2000s, Thabo Mbeki, along with others, created the African Union after the OAU. NEPAD, the APRM are institutions that were created in that time. Professor Eddie Maloka at the APRM is trying very hard and being successful in transforming the APRM into really an AU organ, and there is a lot of progress. And here at the summit in Addis Ababa, there's going to be meetings around the APRM. But of course, South Africa, I was saying the other day, if we today say we are now bringing 100 rebels from the DRC to Sun City for a few months to discuss and send our troops, it's not the same context. We don't have, the means. Our SANDF is stretched thin on the ground. The context is different. And so we'll have to deal with that. But at the same time, I think many South Africans don't realize that behind the scenes, there are many African countries that come to South Africa to learn from our experience of the transition. Issues like reconciliation, demobilization of the military in countries like the Central African Republic. So almost on the quiet, South Africa is still, so many years after, selling that sort of South African success story. Of course, we can debate around it, but when it comes to technically almost how to transition from a conflict to integrating an army, for example, to this day, South Africa is sharing that expertise with the rest of the continent, whether it, as I say, in Madagascar, there were mediation talks. South Africa really hasn't, I think, done enough to show what it is actually
capable
doing, and it's capable of, and there is still some goodwill. I mean, we talk about xenophobia. We say it is true that there's a resistance from other countries somehow to South Africa's role sometimes, but there are also countries that come to South Africa and say, help us. We are in a phase where we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission or whatever. And then those people who were involved 25 years ago in South Africa are assisting. But I think those success stories haven't been highlighted here sufficiently.
Thank you, Lizelle. Let me move around here. We also have lots of delegates here. Let's speak to ordinary people. Let's find out. You are from South Africa. Why are you here? And what are your expectations?
My name is Dorothy Botsi Tulare. I am from Johannesburg, South Africa, representing Pan-African Businesswomen Association that has been recently launched.
What are your expectations?
My expectations in this particular summit is to make sure that as Pan-African Businesswomen Association, the economic emancipation of women, they are all covered and they are all represented.
We have the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that is going to be implemented somewhere in July. Do you think women have positioned themselves to benefit in this important milestone?
I believe that based from South Africa, the women in South Africa are basically positioned, and we are looking at the free trade agreement to maximize the economic empowerment within the continent.
That's what we have for you here at the AU Summit, Peter. Many people really coming to the summit, and all of them saying that they would want to see a better Africa. And we'll bring you blow by blow in terms of the feedback and update tomorrow. We know that the president will have a lunch with heads of state to talk about his plans. But secondly, South Africa will be taking over as the chair of the APRM and also leading a committee on climate change, an issue that that needs attention because it affects ordinary people, particularly the developing nations, because they don't have money. And those who are the main industrialists are the ones that are polluting the earth.
All right, Sophie, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed. That's somebody we'll be talking to quite a bit over the coming days, our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, who's in Addis Ababa. And we'll soon be receiving President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's taking off shortly and to assume his role as the chair of the African Union for the next year. And a number of key issues on the agenda for him going forward.